Thanks for joining me on Life and Surround. Today I will be reviewing the new Atmos mix for Pyromania by Def Leppard. Pyromania was released in 1983. It was a #2 album in the US on the Billboard 200 chart. Four fairly massive singles. I'm not exactly sure how well they charted, but they were big enough that I am intimately familiar with them, even though I've never owned this album. So purely from radio exposure, I pretty much know the four singles from this album verbatim. Clocking in at 44 minutes, 57 seconds, it's pretty much an ideal album length for my taste. So it has received a 40th anniversary deluxe release that does take physical form. I'm sure there are vinyl releases, but the one that I'm most aware of is the 4 CD Blu-ray book set that retails for around $100 and can be found closer to 70 through discounters. And those prices are before taxes and shipping. Given that this is not a core band for me and not a core album, that price range is way too high for me to invest in a single album. So in this case, I enjoyed the Atmos mix via Apple Music, streaming Atmos. I played it both on my home theater system, a 7.2.4 system that is Atmos capable. And then I also played it through a set of Apple AirPod Pros. So first of all, is this album better listened to on a home theater system with loudspeakers placed in an Atmos configuration? Or does it suffice just to listen on headphones or AirPods? So I auditioned this album through AirPod Pros with an iPhone set up for Atmos and with all of the settings configured correctly. I did find the experience to be rather immersive, but not nearly as discreet and not nearly as directional as the home theater system. So with the AirPod Pros, my experience is that like synthesizers and drum cymbals tended to wrap a bit around back behind my head. And there was like a sense of airiness, but there were no sound effects actively panning around like I heard on my home theater system. In this case, the 7.2.4 experience is vastly more directional and for me, more engaging and exciting. And the reason why I am comparing the AirPod experience to the home theater system experience is that for some streaming Atmos content, I suspect that the mixes aren't all that exciting, and you may get a similar experience just listening through AirPods or earphones of some kind as opposed to, firing up your home theater system, which requires more power. And in my case, my home theater system is often spoken for instance, by my son. So I do look for opportunities to enjoy immersive music through an experience like AirPods because they give me more flexibility, convenience, privacy. They don't take up my home theater system when my son wants to use that room, and so forth. So this Atmos mix, lead vocals are pretty much coming from the front, left, and right speakers. And you have things like guitar solos and other kinds of sound effects and drums coming from the center channel. You have guitars mainly anchored up in the front, left, and right. What you have in your surrounds and your heights are going to be sound effects, synthesizers, certain percussive overdubs like occasional snare figures and cowbell, and then especially the gang vocals, those background gang vocals sung by the whole band and maybe everyone else in the studio, that huge background vocal sound, those generally are positioned up in the heights and favoring the rear of the room. There is an exception on this album, and it is my belief that one of the tracks on this album is actually an upmix. I'm not going to give away the title of it, but I'll just say that all I hear coming from the surrounds and the heights is crowd noise and little else that can't be explained by upmixing from stereo. So it could be that the multi-tracks were not available for one song, but they greenlit an immersive mix of the album in any case. And I am a fan of that occurring, especially if the song doesn't greatly interrupt the flow and like the enjoyment of the album. And I can tell you that I noticed the difference in the mixing of this track, but it overall didn't bring down my enthusiasm for this experience all that much. Why don't you listen and comment if you believe one of the tracks is an upmix, and let us know which track you think it is and whether you agree, or whether you're hearing more of a discrete experience than I am. Other than that, this album is mixed quite immersively. Even from the very, very opening of the album, you get this massive organ blast in the rear height of the room. You get sound effects swirling all around through the heights. Guitars are anchored up front, and then you have like percussive elements that are kind of like featured mainly at ear level in the rear. So you kind of have like all of the immersive sound field covered right from the get-go, right from track number one. There are definitely standout Atmos moments that are going to capture your attention and that you could put on for friends to show off your system to provide like a little bit of immersive wow factor. Die Hard the Hunter, in my opinion, is probably the track that shows off Atmos the best, and that's because of its prolific use of sound effects, while also featuring the other main immersive qualities of that the other tracks do. For instance, huge background vocals up in the heights favoring the rears. During much of this album, I feel like the lead vocal should have been mixed a bit higher. It can get drowned out, though that is also a feature of the original stereo mix. And this deluxe release was executive produced by at least one member of the band. So I don't know. I don't want to assume that like they actually heard the immersive mix and signed off on that. They may have simply trusted the engineering team. But you know, this is an authorized product, and so I wonder if like if anybody from the band had a problem with the lead vocal, they probably would have spoken up. So I think this is a fairly solid immersive mix. If you are into this album, if it's a core album for you, there may be enough for the deluxe set to entice you with a physical purchase. As I said, it retails for around $100. You can get it closer to 70 through discounters. For me, I am quite happy having streamed the Atmos mix. And importantly, like if you're interested in the demos and the rough mixes and the live material that comes in the Super Deluxe set, that material is also streaming. So you really aren't going to miss out on much, except for the book and then for the lossless Atmos experience. In my opinion, if I don't have a Blu-ray sitting around, a lot of times streaming Atmos sounds good enough. Good enough to me. It's kind of like the MP3 of Atmos, and you know, under certain circumstances, for certain reasons, I can appreciate MP3 in stereo. So for what it's worth, you have a lot of choices. You have streaming choices. You have the choice to purchase a physical copy of this deluxe set. You might wait it out and see if the price drastically tanks, which does sometimes happen. Though this is a very popular album, so this Super Deluxe very well could sell out. So I hope I've provided enough information for you to make a good decision, to make the decision that will bring you the most joy and leave you with the most lasting peace. I would appreciate hearing your comments about this deluxe release, including the Atmos mix, either streaming or via Blu-ray. I appreciate you watching. If you like what I do, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, leave comments, share videos, go back and watch older videos, check out my eBay store, pick up a shirt or a hat. It all helps support this channel. And the purpose of this channel is to support the surround and immersive music industry, and also to provide a platform for all of us surround and immersive music nuts to enjoy our music together, making a hobby that can be inherently lonely much less so and much more enjoyable through the shared experience. So again, I appreciate you watching. Thank you for all of your support. And don't forget to live life in surround.